3 brushes with danger that changed everything.
There are moments in life that function as watershed events. Before them, you believe the world operates under certain rules. Afterward, you realize those rules are just fragile suggestions, and that there are people out there willing to break them without a second thought. Today, I'm sharing 3 encounters that taught me this lesson the hard way. These aren't ghost stories or paranormal tales. There's something far more unsettling. Proof that the most dangerous thing in any dark place isn't what you imagine. It's who might already be there. Story 1. The Warehouse Game. When I was younger, my weekends had a pattern. My crew and I would hunt down forgotten buildings, places the world had moved on from. We weren't vandals or thieves. We were curiosity seekers, adrenaline junkies looking for spaces that existed outside normal life. One August evening, we targeted an industrial complex on the city's edge. 4 of us made the trip: myself, 2 friends from high school, and someone's cousin who always volunteered to go last because he wasn't scared of anything. We brought the usual supplies: flashlights powerful enough to illuminate entire rooms, a couple of novelty items we thought were funny at the time, nothing malicious, just the toolkit of bored 20-somethings looking for thrills in empty spaces. The complex was massive, bigger than satellite images had suggested. Multiple buildings connected by covered walkways, most of them stripped to the skeleton. Exposed infrastructure everywhere. The aesthetic of institutional decay.
We entered through a service entrance that someone had pried open months earlier. Inside, the silence had weight. You know that particular quiet that only exists in places where human activity has ceased? Where your footsteps echo in ways that make you hyper-aware of your own presence? The first hour was standard exploration. Graffiti-covered walls, some artistic, most just territorial markings. Rooms filled with debris that told stories of what the place used to be. An old cafeteria with tables bolted to the floor. Administrative offices with filing cabinets torn open, papers scattered like snow. Then, we found the lower level. The basement was different. Darker, somehow. Not just from lack of light, but from something else. Call it atmosphere, call it intuition. Whatever it was, made us uncomfortable. One room in particular stopped us cold. Someone had painted symbols on the concrete floor. Recent work, fresh enough that you could still smell the paint. Now, if you've explored enough abandoned places, you learn that occult imagery is common. People love leaving their mark in ways that feel transgressive. Usually, it means nothing. But something about this felt occupied, like we'd walked into someone's living room uninvited. We didn't linger. The group consensus was to move up, find higher ground, maybe access the roof if we could. 2 of us stayed behind on the 2nd floor. It was a pristine wall begging for artwork, and we couldn't resist. That's when things started fracturing. My friend was working on a piece when he suddenly called out, angry, accused me of taking his supply bag. I was 10 feet away in the corridor, hadn't touched anything. We searched the room, nothing. The bag had vanished. Here's what I remember most clearly: the feeling that we were being studied, that our movements were being tracked by something intelligent and patient. We went looking for our other friends, wandering through a maze of identical hallways. Then I walked into a side room and froze. The same symbols from the basement, only these were wet, paint still dripping down the wall in slow rivulets, and in the corner, the missing bag, placed there deliberately. Before we could process what that meant, we heard them, running footsteps. Our friends appeared from the darkness, gesturing frantically. No words, just universal body language that meant one thing: run now, ask questions later.
So we ran. Through corridors that all looked the same, down stairwells that seemed to multiply. Behind us, voices, multiple people. They weren't just chasing us, they were coordinating, cutting off exits, hurting us. At one point, we stopped to catch our breath, and that's when we heard it. A sound I still can't properly describe.
somewhere between a hiss and a whisper, echoing from the darkness ahead. Then a voice, calm and measured, should have left when you had the opportunity. The psychology of that moment is interesting. Your body enters a state where rational thought becomes secondary. Fight or flight isn't a metaphor, it's a chemical reality that hijacks your entire system. We found an exit through sheer luck, burst through a door we'd somehow circled back to. Didn't stop running until we were in the car, doors locked, driving away from that place. Later, we tried to make sense of it. Our friends had stumbled upon 3 people in robes, sitting in a circle, engaged in some kind of ritual. The moment they were noticed, the pursuit began. Here's what haunts me: the theatrical nature of it all. The stolen bag, the fresh symbols, the calculated herding. They weren't trying to catch us immediately, they were playing with us, testing us, seeing how we'd react. That building still exists. I've never gone back.
Story 2. The Double Knock. 5 years ago, I made a choice that felt like evolution. Left city apartment living for something quieter. A small rental property surrounded by pine trees, where the nearest neighbors were distant enough that you couldn't hear them exist. The isolation was exactly what I needed after years of urban density. No more sirens at 3 a.m., no more hearing arguments through paper-thin walls, just silence and space, and the particular peace that comes from being genuinely alone. October evening, late in the month. I'd just gotten home from a shift that had drained every ounce of mental energy. Ordered delivery from one of the few places willing to drive out to my location. Chinese food, nothing fancy. The doorbell rang maybe 20 minutes later. Quick service, I thought. But when I checked the peephole, something was wrong. The person standing there had no food, no delivery bag, nor receipt, just hands in pockets and a posture that didn't match the role. I cracked the door, chain still on, and asked about the order. He paused, then nodded, said something about double-checking the details before grabbing it from his car.
That pause told me everything. When someone's lying, there's a micro delay while they construct the narrative. A split second with the brain catches up to the mouth. I told him plainly, bring the food to the door or I'm calling police. He muttered something I couldn't hear and walked away into the darkness. I called the restaurant. The food hadn't left yet, which meant someone had been monitoring delivery patterns, watching to see which houses ordered food regularly, timing their approach to coincide with expected deliveries. It's a simple con when you think about it. Most people open their door for delivery drivers without suspicion. That moment of trust is a vulnerability. I reported it to the non-emergency line. They logged it, but couldn't do much else. No crime had actually occurred. Fair enough. The real delivery came later. I ate, watched television. Around 11:30, I heard something at the back of the house. A scraping sound. Metal on metal. Then the doorknob moving. Someone testing the lock. I called 911 from my bedroom, door locked, kitchen knife in hand. Police arrived 15 minutes later, found fresh pry marks near the back entrance. Someone had tried to force entry with a tool. They increased patrols temporarily, said there was nothing else they could do. And honestly, that's the reality of these situations. Until something actually happens, until someone actually commits a prosecutable offense, you're in a gray zone of potential danger. A few nights passed. Nothing happened. I convinced myself it was over, that calling the police twice had scared him off. Then one night, sirens. Multiple police cars racing past my house towards some emergency nearby. 20 minutes after I fell back asleep, knocking at my door. 2 officers. They showed me a photo on a phone, asked if I recognized the person. It was him, the fake delivery driver. They'd just arrested him trying to break into another house down the street. Here's what stays with me: the patience. He'd come back to the area despite police involvement, despite the risk. That level of persistence suggests someone who'd done this before, someone who understood the odds and calculated that most attempts would eventually succeed. I moved out shortly after. Not because of fear, exactly. More because the isolation I'd sought felt different now. Less like peace and more like exposure.
Story 3. The Switched Drinks.
I'm in law school. Second year starting soon. First year nearly destroyed me. 4 hours of sleep was a good night. So when summer arrived, I made a promise. Actually enjoy myself for once. That meant going out. Bars, mostly. Same rotation of places with my hometown friends. Nothing fancy, just the standard weekend ritual of people in their 20s. I have this habit, probably a bad one, where I play a character when talking to guys at bars. Not drastically different from myself, just simplified. I let them make assumptions. It's entertaining watching how people behave when they think they're the smartest person in the room. One Saturday, my friend and I met 2 guys. They seemed normal enough, decent conversation, no immediate warning signs. We talked for longer than usual, which was notable. Most of these interactions fizzle out quickly. At some point, we excused ourselves to the bathroom. One of the guys asked if we wanted drinks. I said rum and coke. Simple, hard to mess up. Standard bar order. In the bathroom, my friend mentioned she was considering leaving with one of them. Uncharacteristic behavior for her, but I wasn't going to judge. We had to back out.
Here's where my attention sharpened. The guys were standing away from the crowd, not talking, not laughing, just still, whispering to each other with expressions that didn't match the energy from 5 minutes earlier. The moment they saw us, the switch flipped, back to casual bar mode. Smiles returned, energy shifted. 4 drinks were waiting, 2 rum and cokes for us, 2 bright yellow frozen drinks for them. Piña coladas, apparently. Now, I'm not saying men can't order sweet drinks, but the optics were unusual, and combined with that weird moment of stillness, my instincts were screaming. So I decided to test something. I smiled innocently, pointed at their drinks, said something about how those looked too feminine for them, how I'd hate for anyone to see them drinking something so colorful. Then, before they could respond, I swapped the drinks, gave them our rum and cokes, took their frozen drinks for us, raised my glass, took a long sip, winked.
One of them stared at me for a long moment, then said, "Touché," and started drinking the rum and coke. That reaction told me I'd been right. If the drinks were innocent, he would have been confused by the swap. Instead, he acknowledged the game. Admitted I'd outmaneuvered him without saying it directly. We finished those drinks. The energy seemed normal again. Eventually, they suggested we all go back to one of their apartments. At that point, I figured we were safe. If they knew we suspected something, why invite us over? The apartment was modest, minimal furniture, almost like he just moved in or didn't actually live there permanently. He offered us drinks from his fridge, put on music. Everything seemed fine.
Then, within 20 minutes, both guys started deteriorating rapidly, slurring words, losing coordination. Within minutes, they were unconscious on the couch. The drugs they'd put in those piña coladas, the ones my friend and I had drunk instead, hit them hard. Their body weight might have delayed the effect initially, but not enough. My friend was drunker than me and didn't immediately understand what had happened. I had to explain. I'd switched the drinks because I suspected tampering. We'd accidentally drugged them with their own plan. She wanted to search the apartment for evidence. I convinced her we needed to leave. We weren't investigators, and we had no idea how long they'd stay unconscious. We called a ride and left. We never went to the police. I know that sounds irresponsible, but what evidence did we have? 2 guys who drank too much and passed out? We'd been in their apartment voluntarily. We'd consumed alcohol. There was no proof of criminal intent.
Here's what keeps me awake sometimes. The question of why. Why drug women who were already willing to come home with you? What was the plan beyond incapacitation? The only answers I can imagine are worse than the question. And the secondary mystery, why invite us over if they knew they'd ingested the drugs themselves? Maybe they didn't know how quickly it would act. Maybe they miscalculated based on body weight. Maybe they assumed they'd have time. I learned something that night about the razor's edge we walk sometimes without realizing it. How close danger can be to a normal evening. How many elements have to align just right for you to get home safely.
So, what is my conclusion?
3 stories, 3 moments where the trajectory could have been completely different. The common thread isn't paranormal activity or freak accidents. It's human intention. People who make deliberate choices to create danger for others, who calculate risk and opportunity, who treat other humans as objects in their personal game. I don't share these to create paranoia. Fear isn't useful when it becomes paralyzing, but awareness is. Trusting your instincts is. Recognizing when something feels wrong, even if you can't articulate exactly why, and acting on that feeling. The world isn't as dangerous as our anxiety suggests, but it's also not as safe as our optimism assumes. The truth lives somewhere in between, and navigating that space requires paying attention. Those 3 encounters changed how I move through the world, not with fear, but with sharper attention, with recognition that safety is often just a series of small decisions that happen to align in your favor. And sometimes, it's about switching the drinks.